And welcome back to another episode of the Rants of a Red Devil podcast. And today is the match review for the Sheffield United game. Now, we've done the first round of fixtures following Project Restart. United coming off the back of that 1-1 draw against Spurs. Well, I feel we were a little bit unfortunate, if I'm honest. I think we deserved more out of the game. There was only one team that wanted to win that game. Spurs and Jose had 3 months to prepare for that game. They got their best players back from injury in Son and Kane, and Jose still blatantly parked the bus at home. They had no interest in going to win that game, and for me, I think it was unlucky that we only walked away from there with a point. Obviously, the big talking point was that defensive calamity of errors that led to the goal, which has led to serious question marks, I think, this time being raised about David De Gea. It's not the first time this season that he's made a basic error like that. There was Everton making an error. There was Watford, Palace. There's a few games this season already that he's made errors, and unfortunately, when you're a goalkeeper and you make errors, they tend to lead to goals. The questions are only intensifying based on the performances of Dean Henderson on loan at Sheffield United. That's lurking in the background, and so are Henderson's aspirations to be United's number one keeper. And I think for the first time, we have to ask that question as to whether he should be. We've defended David De Gea a lot here, and we talked about it in the Spurs review. We've defended him a lot. I think we're partially guilty, and I'm certainly partially guilty of judging De Gea on his past glories. I mean, he was our player of the season for countless number of seasons following Ferguson's departure, and that still resonates in my mind that he was our player of the season. But I think we realistically need to look now and say, but he isn't anymore. And we're seeing what Dean Henderson's doing, and we're seeing that Dean Henderson's possibly the future of not just Manchester United goalkeeping, but England as well. And I think that Ollie's going to have a decision to make in the summer based on the fact that Dean Henderson wants game time, and we don't want to lose Dean Henderson. I wouldn't want to see David De Gea go, and this isn't a we should sell him speech at all. But we have to start asking the awkward questions, and I wouldn't want to be Ollie this summer having to make that decision. But like I say, coming off the back of that Spurs game, it's not a bad result, but I'm disappointed. Obviously, Sheffield United have had 2 games following Project Restart. They got the 0-0 draw away at Villa that they certainly should have won, but for technology failing. And then they got they're coming off the back of the game against Newcastle, where they got beat 3-0 away from home, and that's quite surprising. And I didn't see any of that game, but there were questions made over Dean Henderson in it. Like I say, I haven't seen it, so I can't comment. I'm merely going off the reactions on social media. But apparently he made a mistake that led to a goal. Obviously he hasn't been jumped on like De Gea, because I think it's his first or second this season. But it just shows it can happen to any keeper, I guess. We're obviously on that rich vein of form that spread back before lockdown. It's now unbeaten in 11. Only conceding 3 goals now. So I mean, it's not all bad, and I think we played well and without really creating too many opportunities. I understand why Pogba didn't start. I don't think Pogba deserved to start based on the form that we took into lockdown, and the fact that he's just coming back from an injury. He's got to earn his place back for me. But I certainly think that he deserves to be in this starting 11. I feel if we'd have had Pogba and Bruno on the field together for longer, we'd have won that game. So with that being said, we'll have a look at the predicted lineup, by us that will start against Sheffield United. Although in the review we called for Sergio Romero possibly to be given a run to the end of the season based on De Gea's performances, I think it's David De Gea that will start. When it comes to the transfer market and getting rid of players, we've seen that Ollie can be ruthless. We look at Lukaku, we look at the way he ships Sanchez out the door. But when it comes to players in his squad that are playing for him, that aren't playing well, you tend to find that Solskjaer puts the arm round them rather than just point blank drops them. That's why I think he'll stick with De Gea. This is the symbolic arm around the shoulder. He keeps his spot. So for me, David De Gea is going to start in goal. Whether he should or shouldn't, whether it should be Romero or not, David De Gea is going to start in goal. Right back picks itself. So obviously Aaron Wan-Bissaka whenever he's fit. Best one-on-one defensive fullback in the league, bar none. Attacking wise, he's improving, and I feel sorry for him because he does a lot of it on his own with no right wing support. But he picks himself, Aaron Wan-Bissaka at right back. Defensively, I think it'll be Harry Maguire, obviously club captain, despite his part in the mistake for the Spurs goal. He starts for me. I think he starts for every United fan every week. But alongside him, I think we're going to see Bailly. Obviously, we saw Lindelof come off with a slight injury, which is to be expected that there are going to be some players picking up those slight injuries following so long without football. But also, for that Spurs goal, I think if Bailly plays, and I think Bailly will play against Sheffield United, if Bailly plays, when Maguire's beaten, Bailly covers, exactly like he did against Chelsea when he stopped Kovacic in that one-on-one position. I just feel that goal doesn't happen. David De Gea doesn't have the chance to make that mistake if Bailly plays, because Bailly covers Maguire. I think his reading of the game is better than Lindelof's. Although he's rash and erratic at times, I think his reading of the game is better, and I think he'll start against Sheffield United alongside Harry Maguire. At left back, for me, I think it's going to be Brandon Williams. I think Brandon Williams offers a little bit more going forward. Rashford was a little bit isolated at times, sure wanting to make the same run as Rashford against Spurs. Now, I think for me, Brandon Williams just makes that overlap every time. And even if the defender doesn't go with him, it buys Rashford that half a yard to go where he wants. I think the tandem of Brandon Williams and Marcus Rashford work better. I think we're going to be seeing Brandon Williams at left back. I'd like to see only one sitting midfielder against Sheffield United. That's no disrespect to Sheffield United, but I don't feel we need two holding players at home against Sheffield United. The way that when Matic came on against Spurs, he split the centre-backs and had the ball off them, which allowed the full-backs to push on. I don't see any other United midfielder doing that, and I'd like to see Matic play against Sheffield United. But based on the new contract situation of Scott McTominay, and obviously he's going to be the future of that United midfield, I think it's McTominay that plays in that single sitting role. And in front of him, it's going to be Bruno and Pogba. The way that they performed in the 20 minutes that Pogba was on the field was exceptional. They've obviously got an understanding of each other's games, and they create chances, they're constantly probing. We saw Pogba drifting, and I think that's where Pogba's best, when, one, he's not the focal point of the team. We saw that at Juve, playing alongside Pirlo, he's not the focal point of that team. Now playing alongside Bruno, he's not necessarily the focal point of that team. Not all of the pressure falls on Pogba's shoulders. He's got that ability to just drift and find pockets of space, whether it be out wide, as we saw him start to drift against Spurs, which ultimately led to the penalty. I just think that partnership, allowing Pogba to drift and have that little bit of freedom, alongside Bruno that's always going to be probing and picking passes, works. So for me, it's a midfield of Scott McTominay with Pogba and Bruno sat just in front. And then I think the front three, two of them pick themselves out. On the left, Marcus Rashford. We don't really need to say more. Down the middle is obviously Ollie's number one this season. It's going to be Anthony Martial. On the right hand side though, and this isn't a criticism of Dan James, but I wouldn't play James. I just think that James offers more when the game's open and we can counter attack. We use his pace on the break. When you have to break a team down and there's no room in behind, as we saw against Spurs, it's like playing with 10 men. James cannot be effective in a system that he can't get behind. The whole point of him is the pace and getting in behind the back line. Now, I don't think that Sheffield United are going to come out and be that expansive, especially being without Dean Henderson, obviously being on loan, being without Egan and possibly O'Connell. I don't see them being that expansive. The reason Sheffield United have been so successful this season is they've worked with that core starting 11 group of players. Now that they're missing a few and they're going to have to plug a few holes, I don't see them wanting to leave themselves open at any point. So I think they're going to be very organised. They're going to sit back and try and soak up a lot of pressure. And I don't think Dan James fits that style of game. So for me on the right, although I don't see it as his long-term position, I'd be picking Mason Greenwood. His ability to go left or right and work that half a yard, I think, could be crucial in the game. So I'd have a front three of Rashford, Martial and Mason Greenwood. So that would be my starting 11 for the game against Sheffield United. In terms of the score, I can see 3 points for United. I can see us picking up the win, and I think it'll be 2-0. Like I say, I think Sheffield United are going to sit back and try and soak up the pressure and counter-attack. I think United are going to have a lot of the ball. And with Bruno and Pogba probing, I think we're going to unlock their defence. I don't see us conceding a goal. I think we're going to take that fine run of form defensively, bar the few De Gea mistakes, into the game. I think we'll pick up the clean sheet again, and I think we're going to get at least 2. It's going to be 2-0. This is the match preview for the Sheffield United game done. You can find the match review following the game at rantsofareddevil.com. We always do a written match review, so moving forward it's going to be this podcast format for the preview and a written match review. You can also follow us on Twitter at rantdevil, where you can get breaking Manchester United news. We try to get it out as soon as possible. And these podcasts you can watch on YouTube, you can listen to on the website, as I said, rantsofareddevil.com. You can listen to them on iTunes or on Spotify, whichever platform you do choose to watch or listen to this on. That's not easy to say. Whether that be YouTube, iTunes or Spotify, if you could subscribe and rate if that's available on iTunes, etc. It will really help us out algorithm wise and we'd really appreciate it. So hopefully we pick up the 3 points. Hopefully it's a good match review on site after the game. Let us know your thoughts on starting 11s and final scores on Twitter. Use hashtag #RantsForRedDevil. Yeah, let us know what you think the starting 11 will be, what you think the final score will be. And until the match review, we'll see you later.